Good day, learners! I am Renz Angelo D. Calzada, or you can call me Teacher Jello, your teacher in Philippine politics and governance. And for this day, we will be discussing all about the judicial branch of the government. In the previous lessons in Philippine politics and governance, we already discussed and explained to you the other two branches of the Philippine government, namely the executive branch and the legislative branch. So for this video, we will be explaining about the judicial branch of the government. So what is the Philippine judiciary and its functions? The Constitution defines judicial power as the power to interpret and apply laws. The judicial branch is considered the supreme arbiter or judge and mediator of controversies and disputes on law and the rights of citizens. In terms of governance, the judiciary decides on the validity, legality, and constitutionality of newly approved laws. Should these laws or rules be considered unconstitutional, they might undergo change or replacement. The judiciary also decides on policies which are contested between the other two branches of the government, which are the executive and the legislative branch. Because of this important role, the judiciary often holds itself separate from the workings of the executive and legislative branches in order to maintain its objectivity and ensure that it is free from bias or undue influence. The judiciary also performs a vital role in society as it uses its judicial power to settle disputes which are brought before it. In addition, the judiciary upholds the rule of law by determining violations committed by citizens and prescribing the proper sanction for it. It also ensures the protection of the rights of citizens in cases of disputes on contracts and agreements and violations of constitutional rights. So, in summary, the judicial branch interprets the meaning of laws, applies laws to individual cases, and decides if laws violate the Constitution. This time, let us discuss the structure and organization of the judicial branch of the government. The Philippine judiciary branch is comprised of regular courts tasked to administer justice. We have 2 review courts and 2 trial courts. The 2 review courts are the Supreme Court and the Court of Appeals. The 2 trial courts are the regional trial courts, and the other one are the Metropolitan Trial Courts, Municipal Trial Courts, Municipal Circuit Trial Courts, and Municipal Trial Courts in cities. We will discuss one by one the different courts that I have mentioned. Let us begin with the Supreme Court. The judicial branch of the Philippine government is embodied by the Supreme Court. The Supreme Court is the highest court in the land, and it supervises all the other courts in the country. The courts in the Philippines are empowered to hear legal cases and render judgment on them. In particular, courts exercise the power of original jurisdiction. What is original jurisdiction? That means that they can hear a case for the first time. All courts, from the lower courts up to the Supreme Court, possess the power of original jurisdiction. Higher courts have the power of appellate jurisdiction. What is appellate jurisdiction? That means that they are able to review and evaluate the decisions made by the lower courts. The Supreme Court exercises jurisdiction on cases involving the constitutionality of laws, treaties, and executive agreements, as well as the constitutionality and application of presidential decrees, proclamations, orders, and other executive pronouncements. The Supreme Court also exercises original jurisdiction on cases involving ambassadors, ministers, and consuls. The Supreme Court has appellate jurisdiction on cases involving questions on taxation, criminal cases with the penalty of life imprisonment or higher, cases involving questions of law such as constitutionality of ordinances or regulations, and cases where the jurisdiction of the lower court is an issue. In addition to these primary functions, members of the Supreme Court also comprise the electoral tribunals, which investigate and hear cases on election protests. These electoral tribunals are the Presidential Electoral Tribunal or PET, Senate Electoral Tribunal or the SET, and the House of the Representatives Electoral Tribunal or the HRET. The powers of the Supreme Court come with a set of limitations as well. This is especially true when it comes to the appointment of its members. It is Congress that decides on the requirements for membership in the lower courts. Congress also constitutes the Commission on Appointments, which determines the members of the Judicial and Bar Council, or the JBC, which is the body tasked with recommending the nominees for membership in the Supreme Court. Meanwhile, the final authority in selecting and appointing the justices of the Supreme Court belongs to the President. The Supreme Court is composed of the Chief Justice and 14 Associate Justices. Among the 14 Associate Justices, one is recognized as the Senior Associate Justice. The Chief Justice presides over the hearings conducted by the Supreme Court. He or she also certifies the decisions made by the court. In addition to these functions, the Chief Justice is also the chairman of the Judicial and Bar Council. The Chief Justice also serves as the chief presiding officer in impeachment trials. If the Chief Justice is absent for any reason, the Senior Associate Justice acts as the presiding officer in his or her place. Meanwhile, the Supreme Court can make a decision or conduct a hearing either en banc, which is as a whole, with all of the 15 members hearing the case, or in divisions composed of 3, 5, or 7 justices. This time, let us discuss the other type of review court, which is the Court of Appeals. The Court of Appeals is the second highest court in the country, and it primarily exercises appellate jurisdiction over the decisions of regional trial courts. It also reviews administrative cases involving the Ombudsman and the Department of Justice, as well as the decisions of government agencies exercising quasi-judicial functions, including the Office of the President. Aside from these functions, the Court of Appeals also conducts an intermediate review of criminal cases, where the penalty is life imprisonment or death before it is elevated to the Supreme Court. The court consists of one presiding justice and 69 associate justices who are then grouped into 23 divisions of 3 justices each. And now, let us discuss the lower courts of the Philippine Judiciary. The lower courts in the country are organized based on area of jurisdiction. Regional trial courts, or the RTCs, are categorized into 13 judicial regions from Luzon to Mindanao. In turn, each province in these judicial regions, including Metro Manila, has RTC branches. The number of RTC branches may depend on the size of the population of the province or city. Another one is municipal trial courts, or the MTCs, which have jurisdiction over municipalities or towns. If 2 or more municipalities are covered by an MTC, it becomes a Municipal Circuit Trial Court, or MCTCs. In the case of the cities in Metro Manila, the MTCs are referred to as Metropolitan Trial Courts, or METCs. Aside from the review courts and trial courts that I have discussed, we have also this what we call specialized courts in the Philippines. There are also courts in the Philippines which have jurisdiction over cases of a special nature. One of these courts is the Sandigan Bayan, which is one of the specialized court that hears cases involving violations committed by public officials, excluding the President, Vice President, Supreme Court Justices, and the Ombudsman. Why are the President, Vice President, Supreme Court Justices, and the Ombudsman are not part of the cases heard by the Sandigan Bayan? Because the cases committed by these officials are heard at the Court of Appeals. The cases heard by the Sandigan Bayan usually relate to crimes such as graft, corruption, bribery, and plunder, among others. The Sandigan Bayan is composed of one presiding justice and 14 associate justices. Another specialized court in the Philippines is what we call the Court of Tax Appeals, which hears cases concerning tax collection. This court also hears cases on real estate properties such as lands and establishments, as well as trade fees and fines. The Court of Tax Appeals consists of one presiding justice and 8 associate justices. So what are the specialized courts in the Philippines? Examples, we have the Sandigan Bayan and the Court of Tax Appeal. Aside from the Sandigan Bayan and the Court of Tax Appeals, there are also courts which hear cases on violations of Islamic law, or what we call Sharia. These courts are the Sharia District Courts, or the SDCs, and the Sharia Circuit Courts, or the SCCs. The jurisdiction of these courts encompasses the ARMM and selected provinces in Mindanao such as Lanao del Norte, Sultan Kudarat, and Cotabato Province. The SDCs, or the Sharia District Courts, have judicial power equivalent to that of the RTC, or the Regional Trial Courts. On the other hand, the SCCs, or the Sharia Circuit Courts, have judicial power equivalent to that of the MCTCs, or the Municipal Circuit Trial Courts, possessing jurisdiction over more than one municipality. This time, let us proceed to the discussion all about the membership in the Judiciary and the Supreme Court. Well, how can a person become a member of the Judiciary and the Supreme Court? In order to become part of the Judiciary, an individual must first be a practicing lawyer. Practicing lawyers possess a Bachelor of Laws or LLB or Doctor of Laws or JD degree and have passed the nationally held bar examinations which are administered by the Philippine Bar Association and supervised by the Supreme Court. Lawyers normally act as legal counsels for parties that require court hearing and judicial decisions, whether for private or public institutions. Appointed members of the Supreme Court and other Philippine courts are mandated by the Constitution to hold office until they reach 70 years old or become incapacitated to perform their responsibilities. Supreme Court justices may be removed from office through the process of impeachment. The Senate conducts the impeachment trial for the justices, with the Senate President as the presiding officer. There you have it, learners. We are now done with our preliminary discussion with regards to our topic, which is all about the judicial branch of the government. So learners, I want you now to answer the activities in your module in Philippine Politics and Governance. And to our next video lesson, we will be discussing about the due process and jurisprudence, which is still under the judicial branch of the government. So see you on our next video lesson. Together with your teacher, I am Teacher Renz Angelo Di Calzada, or you can call me Teacher Jello. See you next time. Goodbye.